You have a problem with trust? Do you have a problem with trust? Praise this is your man Raleigh Hall, and you're watching Black Brilliance. I want to share with our viewing audience what we mean about trust and how it can empower our community as one.
In my mind, trust frees you to get things done.
Ooh.
But at the same time, trust is something that is not easily gained. And so, in the business that I engage, which is the law, I've always said trust but verify. So, for example, in this instant where I practice elder law planning, probate, Medicaid planning, I practice estate planning, and I particularly chose to focus on these areas because I think it is so critical in this moment that our community become aware of how these practice areas can impact not just their lives today and their future lives as they get older and enter that season where they may find themselves in a position where they're not able to carry out their activities of daily living, meaning taking basic care of themselves.
Today we have a guest, a man that's a king of our community, nothing less than God's best. Donald Vernon, counsel, if I may say.
Yes, sir.
Glad to have you on the show today.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
To be in a decent nursing home today where when your family comes to visit you, they don't have to hold their nose.
Yes.
It's running $15,000 to $16,000 per month. So if you don't have a plan and you have to pay that out of pocket, you can be broken down financially in no time. All that power, all that wealth that you have accumulation
of your power.
Mm-hmm. If you do not plan, not only does that trust issue relates to how their future health will be managed, but it also deals with how their wealth, their power that they've worked so hard to accumulate over a lifetime, how will they manage that power as they move and mature into this new season? We know that with modern technology that we're up to live longer. And so we have to start planning now in terms of how are we going to support and care for ourselves when we get to 75, 80, 85, and we're no longer able to, let's say, go to the supermarket, cook our own meals. Do you have a plan for how you're going to live and what your quality of life is going to be when God bless you with those years?
With long life.
With long life.
It says, honor your mother and father,
yes,
that your days be long. And I know in our family, my Aunt Arnie, that's what we called her, she didn't trust nobody, didn't trust the bank, didn't trust the government to set her way of managing her elder care. So what she did was she hid her finances in the mattress. Can we afford to do that anymore?
We have to be more mindful of the fact that there are a set of laws that actually allows you to protect that wealth. And so where there was this lack of trust in the past, whether it be lack of trust as it relates to who do I trust to take care of me when I'm older? Who do I trust my resources with? Because for someone to take care of you, they got to have access to the resources to take care of you.
Yes.
And the question becomes, is there anybody in my life that I can trust?
Okay, I want to share with those viewing at this moment. I want y'all to hear what we're saying and then jot down the first name of who it is you do trust. Legally now.
Legally, and that's the thing, because we started off the conversation by saying how grandma back in the day would put, the money.
Savings in her mattress.
In her mattress, right? And it's because they weren't used to having wealth. They didn't know how to manage wealth, and they didn't trust the system.
Those conversations were not something that we had reference of.
Well,
they weren't in our
because we never had wealth to have a conversation around, and for that reason, we don't even talk about money. Right. We don't talk about how to make it. We don't talk about once we get it, how to protect it. We don't talk about once you have it, how to transfer it to the next generation. And so there is a time and a place for that conversation, and I think we're starting that conversation now. There should be no shame in talking about how do you protect the wealth you have created over a lifetime. We should not be ashamed to have that conversation. People work extremely hard, overtime, 2 jobs, sacrifices, especially the generation, the baby boomers and those that came before them. They made sacrifice to accumulate and to have what they have today.
Now you said it, accumulation, and you made reference to that which we've accumulated over the years is our power.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is that we have to learn how to manage the power.
Manage the power.
And that's where the trust comes in.
Yes.
And the verification.
Yes. We talk about the power as it relates to your wealth. But that power directly speaks to your health. The wealth you have dictates the quality of care that you receive.
Wow.
A lot of times you'll have folks have the wealth, but because they had to sacrifice so much, because they had to work so hard, they cut back on how they spend it on their health. Let's say you are a 7-day Adventist and you don't believe in blood transfusion. In your living will, you can say, I don't want blood transfusion as a medical procedure that would save my life, and it has to be respected. Let's say you're a person that emphasizes dying with dignity. You can say, I want to terminate life support if I have a terminal illness with no chance of recovery, meaning no artificial nutrition, no artificial hydration, and no respirator to breathe for me.
Understood.
Right? I don't want all those tubes. And so the living will tell the world, including your doctors, that those type of medical procedures in an end-of-life situation ought not to be applied to me. You kind of want that if you're that type of person who insists on transitioning with dignity. The do not resuscitate, commonly known as the DNR. Now, the DNR only applies where a person stopped breathing or their heart stopped beating. And when you have the DNR in place, and also that's an end-of-life situation. You may be 90 years old, 85 years old. You don't want any invasive, or you don't want to be kept alive because, again, it's your preference, and you may have a condition that have you in pain and on and on and on. But with the DNR, though, it only applies where you stop breathing and where your heart stopped beating. And what the DNR does, it prevents the use of CPR to restore that person's breathing or their heartbeat. People will need to make a decision whether they want those, and I would encourage them to at least pick the healthcare proxy, because you don't want strangers making decisions that could dictate the quality of your life going forward. You want people who know you and respect you to make those decisions. We also need a power of attorney. This document allows someone to carry out your business for you should you lose physical or mental capacity. So if you can't go to the bank anymore and you got a letter that your account is being defrauded, you kind of want somebody to go to that bank and stop whatever, people from taking your money. For you may have a rental property. The tenants stop paying. How do you go to court to get your money? You need that power of attorney. Worse yet, you're in a nursing home because you're recovering from surgery. The bank is calling because the mortgage hasn't been paid. Who's going to engage the bank? You could potentially lose your home. Right. So having that power of attorney in place is critical. You should not trust that the right decisions are going to be made. You need to verify that the right decisions are going to be made. there will come a time when you need this kind of help. And it would be powerful to your advantage that you plan in advance to have these documents, so should you in your old age lose capacity, that your wealth and your health would be protected.
If I may ask
Yes.
you, what is the age, or is it ageless? Because you could be 18 or you could be 80.
From my experience, and I've been doing this for 28 years, right? I would strongly recommend that once you're over 50, 55, you need to start planning, because one of the things that I notice is that the older you get, because of this same trust issue, is the more difficult it becomes for you to make decisions. As you lose that physical strength, you become suspicious and fearful and concerned about why people are suddenly interested in you.
Ooh.
And you get pushback from different children, and you get confused, and you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, you're paralyzed. You can't make a decision.
Ooh.
So the decisions and the planning needs to happen when you're relatively strong and have some physical power, where you have that confidence to implement or to plan what you want implemented when you're no longer able to implement it yourself.
Now that's not just verbally, that's writing.
Writing, and that's the difference, right? Because we've grown so accustomed to a handshake. My eldest daughter, she's on point. She'll take care of everything, not realizing that one day she may get married, she may get a very influential husband. They may decide to move to California and leave you in New York. All kind of stuff.
Wow.
People run into divorces. They deal with it by starting to drink. All of a sudden, that perfect, responsible child that you had all this trust in, life turns sideways. And to protect against that type of possibility, I say visit your attorney, have a plan, put that plan in writing, so no matter what happens in terms of life, and you, if you've lived, know that life doesn't run in a straight line. The key is that people need to understand that they need not leave things to chance. They really, really need to sit with an elder law attorney and an estate planning attorney to ensure that their legacy that they have worked so hard to build doesn't go a poof. And you're one of those people who, for whatever reason, you get a stroke, you're in a car accident, you develop cancer, God forbid, and your wife, who is now 75, 65, 80, 70, whatever.
Yeah.
To expect her to be your home health aide, your nurse, manage your medication, help you ambulate back and forth to the bathroom, you're basically going to get her sick. And so you got to say, if that should ever happen, do I have a plan? Hi, I'm Donald Vernon from Vernon Associates. You're watching BLAQ, Brilliance with Raleigh Hall.